Hello, hello. Welcome back to the Soul Align Network podcast, now streaming live. This is a space where leadership and visibility and embodiment just really come together. And I'm excited to always come to you and share all the wisdom from all the guests that come in, and today's no different. So please say hello if you are catching this live. Let us know where you're tuning in from. Also, if you catch this on the replay, say hello. I'm Criss Madrigal. I am the founder of the Soul Line Network, and today we are going to be talking about something that many high achieving women don't even realize they're carrying, which is inherited survival patterns and really what it means to return to ease. And for that, I have our very special guest, Maira Holzmann, joining me. She is one of our guest experts also inside the Soul Line Network, and I'm excited to start this conversation and this episode today just with such an important topic. So, welcome, Myra. I am so happy to have you here.
Hey, Chris, I'm really excited to be here. Thanks so much.
Yeah, I would love for you, Myra, to just really start. Give us a little introduction of who you are and share with us a little bit about what led you to the work that you do today.
Yeah. Mhm. Well, first of all, I am a mom and I'm a wife and I'm also Filipina. So my family immigrated here when I was two. I was born in the Philippines and then grew up here. And that feels particularly relevant with everything that's going on in the world, especially with ICE detentions. And that's a big part of what's driving the work that I do, especially working with high achieving women and this inherited hustle or go, go, go. In my professional life, I am a somatic psychotherapist, and I specialize in working with adults who struggle with the consequences of CPTSD, complex post traumatic stress disorder, and as well as early trauma. And a lot of what led me to the work, everything that led me to the work that I'm doing is coming from my own traumatic background. Growing up with immigrant parents, being bicultural, growing up in a Filipino household, and also being um, definitely American in the ways that, I went to school and all my friends. And also in the recent past, realizing how much of my patterns towards overdoing, burnout, and seeking achievement had to do with my ancestral trauma of Filipinos being colonialized and oppressed. So you ask a great question, and it's deep, as I think it probably is for many people who resonate with anything that I've said, and any of your listeners who can really recognize with the overdoing, overachieving for a sense of safety and belonging.
Yeah, thank you. I think there are so many people that resonate with that. So many people I know in my audience as well who are bicultural, who are immigrants. I'm Mexican American. While I was born here, I was raised in Mexico, and I also resonate with some of the things that you're saying of the overgiving, overachieving. And in fact, I was just having this conversation with my mother I think it was Friday, where I said, this is one of those generational patterns that I am here to break, right?
Yes.
And we started this conversation, and she even made a comment like, "Oh, it's something that, we should be proud of, and it comes from, our ancestors, and they've worked so hard." And I said, "Yes, it is. But I'm gonna I'm gonna put it there also that I don't want to live in exhaustion and burnout. We can have that work ethic that we
Yes.
carry within our, blood, but also knowing that when our day is complete, it is complete, and our worth is not based on the amount of work that we do or how much we sacrifice ourselves or what we do endlessly for others. And I
Yes.
said, I am here to break that. I am here to put myself first, something I hadn't done before, because I want to teach that to my children as well.
Correct. I mean, everything you just said landed in the core of my whole system as both truth and like this really pleasant weightedness in the body. Because I mean, one of the ways that I think about ancestral healing is I have wise and well ancestors that are rooting me along a path that no one before me has ever been able to do, which is to work and have a life where I'm enjoying myself and I'm meaningfully connected and I'm getting to experience life that isn't always about survival. So, amen to everything you just said. Thank you for stating it so eloquently and beautifully.
Well, thank you for bringing this topic because it's so important and it's one that I continue to hear over and over, especially within my culture,
I bet.
because people often don't know how to break away from that because it's tied to an identity, even though it may even be subconscious, right?
Yeah. Well, I also think that people don't know how to break away from it because they don't realize that it's an ancestral patterning that relates to basically selling ourselves and our ourselves as livelihood in order to gain that sense of safety and belonging. Right? I mean, that's what oppressive cultures teach us to do is we have to bend over backwards, be perfect, do everything that's needed and do it happily when the cost of our beingness is compromised and we have learned to abandon ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's a big topic, and I just want to tell a really quick story if I
Yeah.
can. So about 4 or 5 years ago, right as COVID was coming on, I was working I have a friend, I call her my spiritual friend, and I was telling her how exhausted I was running my business as a psychotherapist. And she looked at me and she said, that's because of your ancestral roots and ancestral trauma. And I looked at her and I got mad. And I laughed, but I was like, F you. Because somewhere in my bones, I felt the truth of it. And I didn't want
Mm-hmm.
to face it. I didn't want to face the fact that literally just coming out of burnout as COVID hit, I was doing all of these things where I was supposed to be the boss of my own life and my own company, but my company was actually running me. And it wasn't serving me in the ways that I had hoped that it would because I kept just overdoing. So that's how I got on the path 6 years ago of really starting to look more closely at how ancestors and ancestral trauma can impact modern day living and how we show up in our identity and as humans in relationship with each other, and especially when it comes to work.
Yeah. Okay, let's go there a little bit.
Okay.
From the work that you've done, how does that impact us? The ancestral, I mean, I don't just want to call it trauma, ancestral everything that we're carrying. How does that
Yeah.
affect us?
Well, what I can say for myself, and I'm sure that your listeners and viewers will relate, how it showed up for me was first in the performance of status. And what I mean by that is that when I started looking at this stuff, I had just hit a place in my private practice where I was going to open up a group practice, and I had hit a level of mastery, and it wasn't enough. Like I kept just having to work more and take on more activity, and so there was this part of me that needed to prove to the world that I was worthy by being successful, by charging a certain amount, by having so many days off, by having a wait list, right? I'm a psychotherapist. So that performance piece was one of the ways that it showed up. And then the other one was what I think is called hustle culture. Like always having to hustle so that I have a sense of safety. And that safety also breeds belonging. Because if I belong to the ruling class, let's say, then supposedly I'm safe, except for that I kept abandoning my needs. I kept abandoning the needs of my family, of my marriage, in order to support this need to be seen in a certain way, which for me was all about status. I'm not proud of that, but it's also what was true. I grew up in a family, we were not wealthy growing up. Definitely lower middle class to middle class, if we're going to use those kinds of terms. And for my parents, it was always about status. It was always about, how wealthy you were, how safe you were in your career, choose careers that are safe, like being an engineer or a nurse or a doctor. And none of that really felt aligned with me. It felt like something that was getting passed on to me, which was to play the part so that I can belong and be safe. And that is really damaging.
Oh my goodness, you've touched so many things that I'm like, oh wow, which direction do I want to go? But
Yeah.
it's so important. So I want to talk about two things, or I want to like tap into it a little bit. Hustle culture, because I think that it's still super prominent right now.
Yeah.
And it's something that I too got sucked into it. I was in corporate for 20 years and I walked away nearly 2 years ago. And it was, oh my gosh, like this big relief for me because not only was I, in the corporate space for 20 years while I was raising my family, while I was dealing with, children, twin daughters with complex medical needs and, had 3 children under 2 years. I was the breadwinner. I was traveling. I was trying to manage all these things and it was still like go, 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 go. Like work never stops. Like
Correct.
you're always on. That then led to, other things, autoimmune condition and all that. And so I remember when I said, I don't care about anything or anyone else right now except my family. And I don't know about in the Filipino culture, but in the Mexico culture, there is a lot of gatherings, a lot.
Same in
And
Filipino culture.
you're expected to go to all of them, right? It's like, come on. And I remember when I started getting comments from family, oh, you're never here, or you're never come anymore. And part of me, like, I struggled with that because one, it's like, oh my gosh, that belonging, right? Do I like, it's that sense of belonging with your family. And it's like, oh my gosh, do I not belong? And then you start to feel kind of like the separation, but I physically couldn't do it anymore. It was
Yeah.
too much with what I was dealing with once my children were born, especially my daughters. It was too much. And that was
Yeah.
just impacting my home life. It was impacting so many things because I was trying to keep up with that idea, but I couldn't. And I
No.
remember the day I let that go, it was that big relief. And I said, I'm not going to let it get to me. Right. But then you talk about that belonging. And then
Hmm.
things just kind of like, well, do I belong here? Do I not? I mean, even culturally, right? Like I grew up in Mexico and I felt like I am American as can be, right? I mean, I was born here. I went to school here and we lived 6 months in the US and 6 months in Mexico. But there was a
Mm.
part of me where I felt like I didn't belong here in the US and I didn't belong in Mexico either. And it was
Yeah.
this weird dynamic that, this weird dance that I went through for a large part of my life. And so now it's like fast forward, I'm here and I'm looking at all this. I can see now with the work that I've done in myself, what are the things that are coming, from my culture, from my ancestors, from all of that,
Yeah.
that
Absolutely.
those expectations, the culture here in America. And I said no more. I couldn't.
No.
And once I did that, it's almost like I just released so much, and it's like this big weight was lifted off my shoulders.
Yes. Absolutely. So it's funny the way that you're talking. So one of the concepts that I'm bringing to my work, and it's new to me, but it's a concept that is the word is new to me, and the concept is new. But the concept, the word is called ginhawa. So in Tagalog, which is the primary language of the Philippines, sometimes people call it Tagalog, but it's actually called Tagalog. There's a word called ginhawa, and ginhawa is the experience that you have. It's like an exhale after hardship. It's like, oh, I've just worked in corporate America. I've been dealing with all of these things with my kids and my family, and now I release these burdens. I let go of this thing that was so caused so much strain to my body and, made me maybe feel like I don't know where I belong. And so ginhawa is this idea of really exhaling and kind of resting after hardship and after hard time. And as a somatic psychotherapist that works with clients who have CPTSD, it's oftentimes a concept I need to bring into my work with clients. It's like, okay, you're doing a lot of work, you're doing a lot of healing. And by the way, you're not supposed to be doing healing work all of the time. Like it's also okay to like rest, to exhale, to relax, to enjoy your life. The point of healing isn't to do it for the rest of your life. The point is to
Yeah.
do enough healing so that you can then create this new template, right? Where you get to thrive and you get to enjoy life and you get to take a nap like I did a few weeks ago in the middle of the day and wake up without an alarm and feel refreshed because my schedule and my life is in flow with my nervous system and my body, and also the way that I designed it, not based on hustle culture, not based on I've got to perform in order to belong and in order to feel safe.
Yeah.
So I love everything that you just said. And I watched your whole body go, and I just let it go. And you kind of sank in your seat, your face softened, your shoulders came down, and you exhaled. That's
Yeah.
ginhawa. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And I'm going to share this with you, but the day that I walked away from my corporate job, it's a day that I was like looking forward to. And I mean, I worked till the final minute,
Yeah,
right?
you did.
And so when I got home, I remember I went and picked up my kids. I got home, I picked up some pizza because I didn't have energy. I fell asleep on the couch and slept for 16 hours straight.
I bet you did, Chris.
I don't sleep that much. But I think my body was like, finally, ginhawa, right?
That's right. Well, and there was also alignment, right? So you were aligned to your self authentically, probably your soul's expression and your soul's desire to incarnate into this reality. And your whole system was like, oh, we're safe now because mind, body, and spirit are all aligned. Right. I don't sleep 16 hours either. But when you come into that level of alignment and every system of your soul comes into that centeredness, everything can release and all that tension, all that bracing, all that effort, right? I have a teacher that calls it anti-gravity effort. You can kind of like just gently land as if you're deflating, but in a good way. It's like, oh, I can release all these patterns, all these stories, all these narratives that don't actually serve.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, I want to just ask a little bit more about ginhawa.
Yeah.
I got to see if I'm saying it correctly.
Yeah, yeah, you got it. Ginhawa, that's right.
So, how does it contrast with the way many high achieving women are taught to move through the world today?
So tell me what you mean by how high achieving women are taught to move through the world, like constantly
Oh,
achieving and
yeah. So, and I think you may perhaps have answered part of it, but it's almost like women, high achieving women, let's say they're constantly on go, 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 achieve, achieve, achieve. So when we talk about ginhawa and just that release,
yep,
how is that, I see it kind of as a contrast, right? Because
it
it's like
is.
ginhawa is like release, let go, let yourself sink in, but we're taught the opposite.
Correct. So, from a nervous system perspective, high achieving women are constantly revving in their sympathetic nervous system, which is all about fight flight. So, even if you're not in fight flight, which is the survival pattern, for me, I think about it as a constant revving. I've got to go, I've got to be doing something. All of my time needs to be filled with productive effort. And when I've completed my stuff, I don't celebrate, I just find the next thing to do. And so, there's never I mean, imagine an engine that was always revving, right? You just always revving. That engine is going to burn out. The whole system is going to start to fall apart because everything gets fatigued. So the concept of ginhawa with high achieving women is like, okay, you did it. Like you completed the project, you launched the website, you launched the product, and now are you carving out space and time to enjoy the fruits of your labor? Where
Hmm.
you get to have a more abbreviated schedule, where you are not just going on vacation, but actually moving more in alignment with your organism's capacity versus the patterned way that you're like, go, 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 go. So ginhawa is the rest in between the arousal states or the sympathetic nervous system dominance so that you can actually restore, be creative, kind of like unfold and unfurl as like the feminine divine essence really knows how to do. And then as your energy gathers naturally, go into the next thing because you're genuinely aligned and motivated to do it, but not because you feel like you have to.
Hmm.
Right.
Okay.
So that rev status is like, okay, I got to keep achieving. I got to keep my revenue increasing by 20% every single year. So I better figure that out versus like, you know what, and this happened for me this in 2025. 2025 was the largest shift in revenue from one year over to another that I ever had. And I spent all of January literally chilling out. I wasn't sweating the fact that I was only seeing 4 to 6 clients a week. I wasn't sweating the fact that I didn't necessarily have people or projects in the hopper. I was like trusting that it would all come. So one of the things about the concept of ginhawa, it's like conceptually, if you can adopt this idea that you did this hard thing, you were successful enough at it or successful, and now you can rest. And what that really builds is actually self-trust.
Mm,
Yeah, I don't have to do hustle culture. I can actually do things in my own time and space because I already have proven to myself that I know how to create this thing, launch it, and make it successful. So Ginhawa is the necessary rest in between creative projects or soul aligned projects that actually light you up. I mean, there's a reason why you left corporate America. I
mhm.
mean, I have a husband in corporate America. It seems pretty soul draining. It doesn't seem, you know what I mean? Like they don't
It
care
is.
about you, they just care about your output. And that's really hard because that's full-time hustle culture, 40 to 60 hours per week, right? And 2 weeks
Yes.
vacation, maybe 4 weeks, depending on like, how mature you are in the company. That is nothing compared to I'm going to just trust that my body's going to let me know when I have enough energy for the next thing. I don't have to push it. I don't have to plan it. I don't have to worry about it. It's just going to come. That's part
Mhm.
of what comes with Ginhawa.
And that trust, right? And being okay, because it's like you have to trust in the unfolding. And I think
That's right.
that's where the wobble happens.
That's right. And it's really deep spiritual practice to live in the mystery. And what I mean by that is like translating into daily life. It's like, I don't know what's next. I don't know when my next client is going to come. I kind of know that I'm interested in doing podcasting. And I'm going to just keep paying attention. I'm going to stay awake. And then I'm going to trust the unfolding and the rhythm of this when it's good and ready and not before. And that took
Mhm.
me years to learn, years and years to learn, starting with nervous system regulation, learning how to actually live in my body versus sort of use it as an object to get me from point A to point B.
Yeah.
So,
And
yeah,
that takes practice
it does a lot of practice.
and a lot of a lot of practice. Yeah, I can see for myself the maybe the areas where I remind myself like, wait, am I really leaning in and just trusting the flow, or am I trying to control it? And then when
Yes.
that awareness comes, it's like, okay, release and let go.
That's it. You got it. And, that's what our egos do. The primary
Yeah.
mechanism of the ego is to control everything
Yes.
and believe that we're in control of everything. And frankly, it's much easier on the nervous system and the entire body to trust in the flow of things. And I say just trust, like it's like no big deal. It is a really big deal. It requires effort, it requires intention, and it also requires a fair amount of self-awareness
Yeah.
to not keep going into those patterns of burnout and over arousal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Myra, I want to ask you, I guess it's more of like a personal question if you're open to sharing a little bit, but it's more of sharing a little bit of your path on ancestral healing and how
Yeah.
that maybe unfolded it. And you don't have to go in detail, just maybe a little bit of kind of how you got started there and really where you're at now with it.
Yeah, thank you for asking. It feels a little vulnerable to admit this, but vulnerability has also served me for my entire adult life, so I don't shy away from it. Up until probably the last 5 years of my life, I really rejected Filipino culture. I grew up in a culture that to me felt very materialistic and very focused on physicality. So, my titas, if there's any Filipinos listening, they will know this experience. My titas, even my titos, would really focus on my body. So I'd come home from college and they'd be like, wow, you put on so much weight. You're so fat now. And I was like, oh my God. Like, and this was before body comments was a thing. This was back in the 80s. I grew up in the 80s. And so I spent most of my life rejecting Filipino culture because my experience of it was always very consistently so negative. It was about status, it was about beauty, it was about thinness, and it was about how much money you had and if you were wearing Gucci t-shirts or not. So fast forward to 2020, and I'm starting to now hear throughout, social media and also in psychotherapy circles, this whole idea of decolonizing therapeutic work and healing ancestral trauma. And I mean, I will be the first person to admit, like, that is a bunch of BS. I don't know what people are talking about. This is all a bunch of made up crap. Like, I had so many judgments about it. And then my trusted spiritual friend, when we were hanging out, we were going on a walk, and I was telling her about my life. You know how sometimes we talk and we don't know how we sound until someone kind of
Hmm.
reflects it back? And she just said it straight to me. She's like, you keep going through struggles of burnout because of your ancestral trauma. And based on I know enough that when I have a strong reaction to something, there's really something I need to take a look at. This isn't just something to bat away and get really rigid and black and white about. And so for 2 years after that, I didn't do this on purpose, but I didn't talk to that spiritual friend because I didn't want to have to look at something that was so implicit in my whole sense of being that I didn't know how to change it. I didn't know what to look at, right? And so when I finally got around to it, when I finally started understanding the colonization of Filipino people and the colonial mindset, right? So one example of this is the closer you are to whiteness, the more safe you will be, right? And part of being closer to whiteness as the ruling power is that you have to perform. When I started seeing the ways that I was um, micro and macro abandoning myself, my needs, my wants, my emotions, my voice, I couldn't unsee it. And
Hmm.
then everything, especially in the last 2 years, I would say, everything started to kind of open up and unfold from there. And I was getting information that I wasn't necessarily asking for, right? So the term I use is I would be doing something and then I would get downloaded all of this information. And it wasn't information I necessarily wanted to have, right? I'll give you one example, and this was part of my healing path. So, my dad and I had a very contentious relationship for most of my life. And when he died, I hadn't spoken to him in 8 years. And I was driving in my car on the way home, and this song came on from my childhood. It was, I can't remember the song right now, but it came on, and all of a sudden, my dad came fully into my frame. Like it was like he was sitting in the car with me, and I wept. And I was like, and the words in my head were like, I forgive you. I love you. I know that you love me. And I'm in my own head going, what? Like I'm driving and I'm like looking around, like, what is happening? And there was something about that particular piece of healing, if you will, where I could feel the love instead of the resentment and anger towards my father, knowing that he was also colonialized and he was doing his best to love me and to help me have a life that he didn't have when he grew up in the Philippines, that kind of broke open everything and then started the sort of rush towards what I'm calling my reclamation of being Filipino and really starting to delve into the roots of what Filipino culture really is. And, we were the Native Americans of the Pacific Islands, kind of like Hawaiians are the Native Americans of those Pacific Islands. And sometimes the experiences are really sweet, but often really heavy with grief because there's so much grief that has been unprocessed from ancestral trauma. So I'm really much more open to getting the information, as evidenced by the fact that I'm using ginhawa on my MairaHolzmann.com website. It's like a central focus of what I want to call my work is, I haven't come up with all the things, but like the ginhawa way or what ginhawa is conceptually, and then how do we apply that to daily life? So it feels like this is the way I make sense of it in my head. It's like my ancestors are like, we're going to show you all the things so that you can create and live a life that we never got to experience. We're all here rooting for you. And when I have those kinds of thoughts, I mean, I'm deeply humbled. I get tearful almost immediately. And I feel really fed in a way that has nothing to do with status, with how thin I am, with anything of the outside world that most of us, or I'll speak for myself, that I pursued really hard, thinking that that was going to be my way of getting safety and belonging.
Oh, thank you for sharing that.
Thanks for asking.
Yeah, I think it will help anyone who's listening, especially women, just really understand if there's any of that disconnect with anything with their culture, anything with their ancestors. I feel like we're living in a time where it's like there is so much wisdom there, but
Yeah.
are we tapping into it in a way that is going to allow us to flourish,
Yeah.
do we have the ability to see what is being shown to us and shown, in quotes because it's like it could be a download, it could be something that you see, a memory or something like, can we see what they gave us and have the ability to release what doesn't serve us anymore, but
Absolutely.
take that wisdom and carry it forward?
Right. And carry it forward in a way that's authentic and true to the times that we're living in. Right? Like, I
Yes.
don't carry a lot of Filipino traditions with me except for the food. And in some of my meditations, when I'm actively and intentionally reaching out to my wise and well ancestors to guide me, they're telling and showing me things that I couldn't possibly make up that are definitely serving me. And ginhawa, the word ginhawa is one of them. I called my mom when I found that word, and she had so much to say to me about it. And it was so beautiful because we haven't connected that well for a long time because of my rejection of Filipino culture. And she's really seeing and supporting me come back home to the motherland and to Filipino culture in a way that actually is meaningful for me versus the way that I experienced it growing up.
Oh, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Now, for anyone that's like listening, tuning in, whether they're Filipino or not, just the topic itself, because I know it's resonating with me. If they're curious, if they want to tap into how, they can begin this, healing for themselves, what's one piece of advice that you have for them?
One piece of advice I would give to your listeners is to take a look at the most recent of their lineage's experience and start to kind of paint the picture of what each generation had to deal with, right? So I'll just give you a quick example. I was working with a client who is Jewish, and she was really, really struggling with a lot of anxiety around um, being her authentic self and living a life where she gets to enjoy. And it occurred to me all of a sudden in the session, and I said, so has anyone in your lineage, like your parents, your grandparents, or before that, if you know, ever experienced living authentically and getting to live just for themselves versus having to live for safety and having to live for, um, the family and upholding the lineage? And there was a pause and she just started crying. And she's like, no, I'm the first of my kind. I'm the first of my generation to do this. And it was because we took this eagle's eye perspective of what her parents went through and their parents went through, and then, if accessible, what their parents went through. Because most generations up until recent times have only lived in survival.
Yes.
So that's one of the ways I would encourage your listeners to start looking at, why am I struggling so hard? Why do I keep going into burnout? Why do I keep saying yes when I mean no? They might be the first of their lineage to ever have that privilege and that capacity to do it. And that changes things. So that would be the piece of advice I would give.
Oh, thank you. I love it. Now, for anyone who wants to connect with you further and just get to know your work a little more, how can they reach you?
Yeah. So I run a group psychotherapy practice in Denver called Somatic Therapy Partners. And you can look that up and you can find me there. I'm one of the clinicians. I also help run the business. And then I've also started my side business at MairaHolzmann.com that focuses on more coaching as well as psychedelic medicine journeys and integration work, and other things like a podcast that is due to launch here in the next month or two.
Ooh, exciting.
Yeah,
Congratulations on all that.
yeah. Thank you.
Gosh, I feel like you mentioned a few things that we could probably dive into in a few more episodes, but in the
Yeah,
interest of time, I just want to say thank you for what you bring to this conversation, what you brought to it, what you will bring to the conversation inside the Soul Align Network. And for those of you that are tuning in, if you are not a part of the group, the Soul Align Network is a community where we have guest experts that come in every week and really share their wisdom, their medicine with our community in the areas of health, wealth, relationships, spirituality, and personal power. And Myra is part of our guest experts. She'll be soon dropping in to do her signature event.
yep,
And if this topic is something that kind of stirred something within you, then I encourage you to join the group so you can really connect further with her along with all our other experts that are there. Myra, thank you so much. Any final words before we say goodbye?
No, it's just been a true pleasure. I really appreciate the precision, so to speak, of your questions. I feel really witnessed, and I love that. So thank you for that gift.
Well, thank you for just sharing so openly and so personally. I
Thank you.
appreciate that. So, to everyone tuning in, we will see you next time here on the Soul Network podcast. Until then, goodbye.
Bye.